Brian Moran, founder of Government CIO. Welcome to Government CIO Magazine.
Hi, I'm Bill Giandoni, and welcome to Government CIO Magazine. Today we're sitting down with the Enterprise GWAC Division San Diego from the GSA.
I'm John Cavadias, the Procuring Contracting Officer for the Alliant 2 GWAC Procurement.
Hi, I'm Casey Kelly. I'm the GSA Enterprise GWAC Division Director here in San Diego. I'm also the Program Manager for the Alliant 2 and Alliant 2 Small Business GWACs.
And I'm Richard Blake. I'm the Senior Technologist for the GWAC program.
So I'll take this one first. So from my perspective, the main goals under Alliant 2 fall into three areas. We first want to continue the best practices that we've established under the current Alliant and Alliant Small Business GWACs. Second, we want to build upon those best practices moving forward with the Alliant brand, with some of the new ideas we have for Alliant 2. And third, I think we want to leverage the relationships that we have with our customers and our industry working group, our industry partners, to continue driving innovation through collaboration. So if I could just briefly touch on each one of those. So Alliant and Alliant Small Business today, they've been very successful in terms of dollars awarded. We're right now approaching close to $28 billion that have been awarded. The key caveat to that is if all options under Alliant are exercised, that's the number. Currently, about a little under half of that has been obligated, but we anticipate all those options to be exercised and that number to come in. So $28 billion that's been awarded by 60 different agencies as a starting point, and we think is a great success for Alliant and Alliant Small Business. What has made that successful was the model that started with Alliant that has been copied by a couple different contracts already, where you have almost two near identical contract vehicles in terms of scope, with Alliant Small Business being the set-aside, dedicated to small business. And if you add to that in terms of the design of the vehicle itself, it was brilliant how the scope of Alliant and Alliant Small Business was aligned to federal enterprise architecture, which basically allows for anything IT anywhere to be performed in terms of services. Add to that, how comprehensive and flexible it is. In terms of the flexibility, all contract types are allowed under it. In terms of flexibility under a single task order, many of our customers can perform or get products and or services whether or not they're required, whether or not they're IT or not, as long as they're integral and necessary to the IT solution. So all those components of the design of the Alliant Small Business GWAC has really contributed to making it successful. Adding to that some of the value adds. We provide an ordering guide for a customer. We provide templates, acquisition templates. We provide sample statements of work of various IT disciplines. All those value adds, as I call them, to help our customers streamline, so they're not reinventing the wheel to do their acquisitions, saving them time and money. We have a dashboard, a GWAC dashboard. We just released recently the GWAC Prices Paid portal, which has some really good intelligence in there for our customers in terms of on the front end and back end doing acquisitions. So all of those things that I call best practices we want to continue. Building upon that, moving forward under the brand name of Alliant. Some of the things we're kicking around that I'm going to let John and Richard kind of get more into is we're looking at standardizing IT labor service categories that we think will drive some efficiencies. We're putting language into the contract vehicle that's going to ensure our customers that the work that's being performed is aligned with the presidential executive order as it relates to cybersecurity. That's a big hot button right now, as everybody knows. We've got some language in the contract vehicle in terms of sustainability and some presidential executive orders there to make sure our contractors are continuing making progress in terms of sustainability. So that's kind of some of the broad, high-level areas that we're considering with Alliant 2, like I said, John and Richard, I think will touch on. And then finally, it's our relationships really that we have with our customers. We've been working closely with the customer working group now for almost a year, and we have about roughly 15 separate agencies represented by 30 different customers. They're working closely with us, that we bounce off them ideas, input, and feedback. Well, our goal is to keep this group intact as a focus group, even after the contract is awarded. And we think that's going to allow us, through that collaboration, continue to make the contract current. And as the times evolve, we evolve. We're going to continue the same thing with our industry partners. We have an Alliant shared interest group that's been very successful now for the whole duration of the current Alliant contract. We plan to do the same thing with Alliant 2.
Actually, the solicitation and contract has been developed, and it's still being continued to be developed as a joint acquisition team, both with our office in San Diego, which will award the Alliant 2 GWAC unrestricted, where anyone, whether they're small business or other than small business, can place an offer on. And we're working with Kansas City, Missouri's GSA office, and they're over the small business Alliant 2 GWAC. And we have developed the all parts of the solicitation and the contract together. So there's very, very few differences. Some of the differences are specific to small business and other than small business. For example, for us on the unrestricted side, we have a requirement for subcontracting to small business. Anytime a requirement is over $750,000, I believe that's the threshold today. A subcontracting small business plan with specific goals for small business are required. So that's exclusively in our contract, and which is not in the small business set aside GWAC. And other than that, the solicitation requirements are also almost identical. So the evaluation requirements are in certain areas a little looser. I don't know if that's the right term, but the thresholds are lower for the Alliant set-aside contract, with the understanding we're dealing with small businesses there, so it's easier for them to qualify for a contract on the Alliant program. Other than that, there are no other differences, unless I may have missed something there.
No, you didn't miss anything, but I'll hark back to the difference between Alliant current and Alliant 2 and any differences that range there. As far as scope is concerned, the only significant difference between Alliant 1 and Alliant 2 is that FEA has changed. So FEA is now version 2 with 6 reference models as opposed to 5. Much easier to understand. They did a much better job in realigning the federal enterprise architecture to actual functional areas that are in plain language that we can understand in the marketplace. So there are no significant differences in the scope. Casey touched on the major difference that we see in this contract over Alliant 1, and that is we are standardizing 31 IT service labor categories. We vetted that thoroughly with industry, we vetted it thoroughly with our customers, and I think we're in agreement, I hope we're in agreement, that the 31 IT service labor categories that we've selected are those, quote, vanilla labor categories, those that we really can't argue about: help desk, support, infrastructure support, implementation, those things. To take that off the table in the negotiation, we have an IT service labor category that you can use. But we've also, John has done a great job at putting language in the contract that doesn't limit the OCO, the ordering contracting officer, doesn't limit them to those IT service labor categories. So that if we miss something, we don't want to affect the mission or affect the acceptance of the contract. So we're still giving the OCO total and complete flexibility. They own the task order just the same way they owned it if they were doing a full and open on their own. They just take full benefit of the Alliant pre-compete. And we're aligning with Federal Enterprise Architecture version 2 as opposed to version 1. We're still tipping our hat and harking to the DoD IEA, which is basically in alignment with Federal Enterprise Architecture version 2. So the most significant being the labor category.
And expanding on the differences between Alliant 2 and the original Alliant, one of the major differences is with Section B, which is pricing, and the types of contract types that can be used as a task order. In the original Alliant, you could use a fixed price task order type. You can use any of the cost type. You could use labor hour. You could use time and materials. With Alliant 2, we added a new contract type, which is the requirements contract type. This is the first time I believe it's ever been done that we know of in this type of MAC or GWAC. The advantages of the requirements contract is that it gives more flexibility to both our agency clients and to our contractors also. It's not. Some folks view this as an IDIQ under an IDIQ, and it is not that. An IDIQ under an IDIQ would not be permissible because it would circumvent competition. With a requirements type task order, fair opportunity still must occur among the pool of contractors under Alliant 2, and it's also limited to commercial type items that are commoditized type of items, such as data center and virtualization services, cloud migration and storage, IT disaster recovery, IT help desk, for example, is a big one where requirements type would be helpful. And the biggest benefit to the agency is that they can obligate funds as needed when using individual calls when the needs arise. The only requirement is that the agency will need to go out initially with getting quotes, price offers for unit prices, and the scope needs to be complete. Other than that, it'll add more flexibility for the agencies to do those type of commercial item task orders.
I mean, I think the audience will probably recognize that there's a huge gap in how the government buys and what technology is currently offering. And I'll use as a service, the as a service model as an example. For us to do it by the drink, you remember those old days when we talked about cloud by the drink or by the sip, government can't do that because of the fiscal limitations. So this is our attempt to at least move the needle a little bit in that direction. We can't deal with the fiscal, but we can deal with making it a little bit more creative and easier for them to put together a task order to buy things like cloud, help desk as a service, accounting, HR as a service. All these as a service offers, they've become more and more popular over the 15 years of this contract, I would suspect.
One of the other differences between the Alliant GWACs is that there's a post-award execution requirement for the contractor where they'll need to be engaged in the Alliant 2 program. And engagement will be measured on a performance-based level, and that ultimately that comes down to placing offers onto an agency's task order requirements. So there'll be certain minimal requirements there on an annual basis, and/or requirements for revenue from those task orders. This is a big change because we're not part of the schedule, the GSA schedule program. We're an active GWAC, and that's exactly how we are going to operate this program. Participation and production is a requirement throughout the term of the contract. Well, in short, they're almost identical. There's a few slight differences between the two when it comes to dealing with small business subcontracting requirements in the Alliant 2 Unrestricted contract, and for the Alliant 2 small business set aside, they are bound by limitations in subcontracting. Other than that, and some threshold requirements on the the solicitation for for evaluation purposes, there's really no noticeable differences between the two. But they are two distinct solicitations and two distinct contracts.
So a wide spectrum, it encompasses all areas of information technology. As we mentioned earlier, by aligning scope with FEA and DoD IEA, anything IT anywhere, including ancillary services, digging ditches to run a fiber optic cable, recertifying an aircraft FAA because it has topology sensors on it now, that type of thing is all doable under the Alliance. So it's a wide spectrum. The type of contractors that we're expecting, tough question to answer, because our job, I think our primary job, what we've been working on since 2013, is to try to make this as fair and open as possible, to attract those contractors that can best serve government. We would be foolish not to believe that the usual players will not be participating in this contract. The next level would be taking us to the leading edge technologies, where we're trying or attempting to evaluate those companies that have specialties in areas that will be, or we suspect will be, the focus of the federal government in the future. We think that those fall into 4 domains: development, security, health, IT, and data. So if we can, for those other than huge companies that are wanting to participate in the Alliant or Alliant Small Business 2 versions, I would suspect that what they should be doing right now, and my advice to them when asked, is go through your library. This is a self-rating, a self-evaluation. You're self-scoring yourself on this contract. You're doing that in 2 basic areas of information technology: the PSC codes, which is a huge section under the new version, and the leading edge technologies. And you need to go through your library, subjectively review that library, as we did on our library, determine if you could reasonably cite work done under a given contract that may be coded to D399, IT services other, that you could reasonably cite that also included a cybersecurity, and so you want to quote under the cybersecurity PSC code, get the necessary documentation, which is covered in the draft RFP and will certainly be covered in the final RFP, and submit it. So start reviewing your library according to what we have published in the draft RFP and what we're about to publish in terms of our realignment with the leading edge technologies. John, would you like to add anything to that?
Richard, you said it all. I just one of the messages I try to get out to the IT industry community is to not be so quick to say, I don't want to put an offer in on this. I may not qualify because I'm a mid-tier, so-called mid-tier business. There aren't as many integrators that will end up on this contract as many folks believe. The Alliant, and I speak specifically on the Alliant Unrestricted GWAC procurement, there'll be plenty of opportunities for the so-called mid-tier businesses to get onto Alliant. We're not trying to restrict competition. GSA still wants to encourage and continues to encourage anybody in the IT community to consider putting an offer in on the Alliant 2 procurement.
And I'd hitchhike one more time on that by saying we came out with a draft RFP. We were reasonably confident that we had it nailed. We've done a great deal of market research, a great deal of work. And then what we discovered, because we held 106 one-on-ones in this very room, where industry came in and had at least a half hour and sometimes a little bit more to talk to us about where we might have missed the boat. They did the same thing in Kansas City for another couple of hundred. So we did well over 300 face-to-face interviews with industry and received a great deal of input. I would encourage industry to wait for the final RFP and see some of the things that we're releasing soon to be on FedBizOps, again with regard to LETs, and on Interact, where we communicate a lot with industry as to how we paid attention. We really did listen to what they had to say. Our complete objective, as we said during those meetings and will continue to state, is to make this solicitation as fair as possible to everyone. We are not focusing on large monolithic companies or small boutique companies. We're focusing for what is perfection for government in what we perceive to be the IT requirements in the years going ahead. We fortunately have the benefit under this solicitation of some 7 years of experience with Alliant One. We know what our customers are buying. We can start to see trends on what they will be buying given the current environment that we're living in. And as a result of that, we've built requirements within the contract that can meet those needs. This is not a contract for someone who should be applying for a schedule or for a small company, 2 guys in their garage. This is a contract for the type of people who know what they're doing, either in the commercial space or in the government space, having to do with the technologies that are represented in the solicitation.
If I could just add one last point, and what I really like about the process is we're not operating in a vacuum. What I mean by that is when we get great input and feedback from the meetings, one-to-one, face-to-face meetings we've had here in San Diego and Kansas City, when we consider changes to the draft RFP, what we believe is in the best interest of our customers, we're bouncing a lot of those ideas off our customers through our customer working group. And I think that's very important for people to understand to get the best product in hand.
Right, where the GSA is only one of the 60 agencies currently using Alliant. So we're representing all of the IT divisions of these federal agencies. So what they say they need, what they demand, is a prime concern to us, and which is why Casey has engaged a large group of agencies. And we speak to them both face to face and on the phone, and we take their feedback and put it into the draft contract. We're not going to have any minimum passing grade. These are discussions we've had with the Alliant 2 joint acquisition team, and we believe that may limit us if we have a minimum threshold in terms of points to get onto this contract. We may be cutting out folks, companies that we're missing out on if we were to do that. So we'll just let competition tell us who's going to get onto the contract. Currently, we are looking at finalizing the RFP and posting it sometime in the winter of the winter season is really the best I can say. That's our plan right now. As far as the date of award, I don't think we've actually come down to that point yet. That all depends on a lot of factors, as you know, when you're working a procurement of this size.
So I'm going to first suggest, so if you go to gsa.gov/Alliant2, the number 2, that's a website we've stood up, and on that website you'll see a link to the Alliant 2 Small Business Interact Community website blog. We've had that in place now for over 18 months, where we've initiated questions for input and feedback to the public. I think there's close to 8,000 members now that have signed up for that. So that's a great starting point for you, the public, to get information if this is the first time you're hearing about Alliant 2 or Alliant 2 Small Business. We're going to continue using that all the way up until the time the official and formal RFPs are released to communicate through with the public. We also, and John has done an excellent job using FedBizOps for more official communications in terms of RFIs, draft RFPs. Go ahead, John.
So I'd recommend that the contractor community, if they're not on it already, to set up alerts for the FedBiz opportunities. And just do a search for Alliant 2, number 2. I'm the procuring contracting officer for Unrestricted. Mr. Greg Bird in Kansas City is the procuring contracting officer for the Alliant 2 Small Business Set Aside. And you could find the draft contracts, the RFIs on there, and there's an RFI that'll be coming out this week concerning the leading edge technologies.
On there as well, you'll see an email address as well, Alliant2 at GSA.gov. Alliant2, number 2, at GSA.gov. That's an email address that we welcomely accept and receive input and feedback for consideration.
And my advice would center on the scoring model. You asked that question earlier, and I would encourage, as John did, everyone should consider bidding, and eventually they'll see the final scoring sheet. Score yourself liberally, but score yourself honestly. We will be doing a great deal of due diligence. We will be digging in deep to verify and ratify those scoring elements. So pay attention, and because we'll be paying attention as well.